The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet.
With the Cheltenham Festival fast approaching, you are welcome to the Final Furlong podcast for your handicap shortlist for Cheltenham 2025 with the author of the Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival betting guide, Paul Ferguson. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Emmet. Good to be back. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, my man. You've been busy on the Cheltenham preview circuit as well, so you've got all the information. You've been watching racing the entire year. You've been talking to all the top trainers. You've been watching out for all the best handicap horses. Every race you've been keeping notes on who's the handbrake applied to here, or who's being ridden considerately with a view to another day. All that information is about to be revealed to you on the Final Furlong podcast. Also, your chance to get your copy of the Essential Guide to Cheltenham, the Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide, comes with a £5 exclusive £5 Final Furlong podcast discount. This is only for Final Furlong podcast listeners, and you will only get a £5 discount by listening to this show. FFCFBG25. That is the promo code you need at checkout. FFCFBG25. Final Furlong Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide 25. Use that promo code at weatherbyshop.co.uk or weatherbyshop.ie and get £5 or €5 off your purchase of the print copy, the digital copy, and the print and digital bundle. And for those who don't know, Paul Ferguson, what can listeners and viewers of the Final Furlong podcast expect to get from the Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide?
Well, as always, the mainstay of the book is obviously the key trends and statistics, looking at every race from the Cheltenham Festival, as well as 12 races, the 11 Grade 1s and the Grand National itself from Aintree. But there's plenty more editorial in it these days, some excellent contribution from elsewhere. There's anyone who's already got it will know it's pretty weighty these days, so there's plenty to get through. So if you are going to buy it, I'd suggest buying it sooner rather than later, so you've got enough time to digest it all before the festival starts.
It is a highly recommended purchase. I was reading Jess Stafford's Breeding Angles section yesterday. Really, really interesting stuff, as always, from Jess, but from the entire team as well, and those stats are invaluable. Even if you're a skeptic of the statistics, just going through them, it'll give you a good idea of the profile of horse you're looking for each Cheltenham Festival race. Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. Get your copy now at weatherbyshop.co.uk or weatherbyshop.ie. Use the promo code FFCFBG25 FFCFBG25 and enjoy and indulge. All right, handicap chasers we're going to start with, and we'll begin with the Ultima at the Cheltenham Festival on day one. The betting is headed by the Changing Man, 8-1. No thanks. Broadway Boy at 10s. Krabilly, who's a big handicap plot for Cheltenham last year, is the same price. Johnny Who, where's he going to go? Paul Ferguson might well know. 12-1 with Jeff Banks bet, and a couple of very interesting horses, including one who was well backed in the last few days and has been talked up by his connections as well. I keep on scrolling. Whistle Stop Tour is an industry best price with Jeff Banks bet. I'm seeing 10-1 and 11-1 with some firms. Jeff Banks is going 33-1 about Lucinda Russell's horse Whistle Stop Tour, who I'm sure Paul is going to be talking to us about in a second. Idea of the profile of the winner of this race, first of all, Paul. Is there a particular type of horse you're looking for, and who has stood out to you in the build-up to the big race?
You'd normally, I say, when you're looking at the trends this year for the handicaps are going to be slightly different, because personally one approach that I like throughout the season, not just Cheltenham as novices and handicaps, but obviously the eligibility rules and the criteria this year. So there's definitely not going to be as many novices taking up engagements in the open handicaps, be it over fences or over hurdles. Whistle Stop Tour, you were just talking about, he'd be one here because he does get in because he's had the 4 runs to make him qualified, so he's eligible for all the handicaps. We'll touch on him shortly, but yeah, just in general terms, obviously when we get to the handicap hurdles, you need to have had 5 runs, and then they've even extended that now beyond novices just to all horses have got to have had 5 runs, which was the issue with Joyous. Some people were saying they've known since the start of the season. That's not actually the case. At the start of the season, it was announced that you'd need 5 for a novice, but they only brought that rule in and extended it to all horses, non-novices included, in January. So I think they were a little bit tired with that in that regard. So it'll make the handicaps certainly a little bit different. And I think the Plate is another race which novices have a good record in, but obviously now they have the option of the novice handicap. where, like, alongside the National Hunt Chase, with them being novice-only races, you only need 3 runs to be eligible to run in those.
So who's standing out to you?
I do actually like Whistle Stop Tour. I thought that it looked like maybe Maya Town was going to be the representative. Lucinda Russell, who has a good record in this race, won it twice, obviously with Korak Rambler, but she's had a couple of other horses go close over the years. But it seemed yesterday, Whistle Stop Tour's got a number of engagements, including the Midlands National, actually on the day after the Cheltenham Festival. But in an article written by Peter Scudamore, it seems that the Ultima is the target. Going back up in trip will definitely suit. I think course experience is another positive here in the Ultima. He got that behind Jaguar on trials day in the time for Novice Handicap Chase, which is invariably down the years has been a good pointer towards festival success. Going back up to 3 miles will definitely suit. I say he is engaged also in the National Hunt Chase and the Muir, but Peter Scudamore basically suggested yesterday that the Ultima was the target. I think he's on a fair mark. I thought early in the season maybe he was being geared up towards the Scottish National, but it seems like he will head to Cheltenham. The one proviso with him is that his 2 wins over fences have come on soft ground. So the forecast at the minute is suggesting that we might be in for a dry build up to the festival. If that's the case, it will be a slight concern with him, but 4 runs, so he's unexposed, which is something I really like in handicap chases. I say slightly outpaced last time behind Jaguar. The 2 previous starts at Kelso and Ayr on soft ground. There was only 2 starts over 3 miles, and he won both of them. So, and going back up in triple suit, I can see the case for him and why he has contracted considerably in price with connections nominating the race for him. So, if you like his chance, maybe strike with the 33-1 because he'll be a lot shorter, especially if conditions come in his favour. Yeah,
very much so. 11-1 is the price I'm seeing with some of the other firms. 33-1 with Jeff Banks Bet if you like that horse. And one of the reasons I liked him is he's shaped an awful lot like On Tempo 2 did back in the day, who looked like he was going to really improve for the step up and trip. I suppose the same thing could be said about Masaccio for the Alan King team. I think
he pretty much ruled this race out, though. I think Alan King in his weekend at Stable Tour a couple of weeks ago, I thought he was ruling out the festival as a whole.
That's interesting because I was talking to Ella McNeil yesterday and she was saying the complete opposite.
No, well, I thought because they have a link, obviously Max McNeil as the link with Ultima, so I thought all year that this was the target. And he did say in a Stable Tour hinted that he wouldn't be running it, and he's obviously got the Jack Richards and the Plate as options. So Ella said he does run in the Ultima.
I'm not going to put words in her mouth. She'll be on the show very soon, so she can tell everybody herself. But I don't want to speak for her. I don't think that's fair, and perhaps either I misunderstood something or misinterpreted something, or something has been said in the intervening time. But
I'm not sure whether he's a strong stayer, to be honest, which you normally do need in this race. The first handicap of the week, so the tempo is normally quite strong. So you do need a thorough stayer in this as much as anything, rather than horses stepping up from 2.5 10 to. Obviously, Whistle Stop Tour will be stepping up, but he's got the stamina in the book already. Before that, but horses who've only been racing over an intermediate trip tend to struggle sometimes in this. And I think that is something to do with it being the first handicap of the week. And the revs are up, that kind of thing. So I thought maybe if he does go to Cheltenham, something like the Plate would have been more suitable for Masaccio, but we'll see. Okay, well, Ella can tell us all about it on her appearance on the podcast very, very soon. Who is the top of your shortlist for the Ultima? Well, it is at the minute, like I say, I'd be leaning, but Whistle Stop Tour, but with the proviso his favour. So maybe if it is as dry as people are thinking, and we only get good to soft, it might be the case that they wait for Utox to run on Saturday. I'm sure that the ground's likely to be more favourable at Utox than Cheltenham at the minute. But as we know, the weather forecasts aren't they're not always as spot on when it comes to Cheltenham these days. And the last few years are anything to go by, and there should certainly be a bit of juice in the ground. The other one I'd give a quick mention to, I was on a preview panel with Darryl Jacob and Richard Hoyles on Monday. Richard Hoyles was keen to give a mention to Happy Go Lucky at a price. And again, if you're looking away from novices in this race, horses who come back and have run in the race previously, have a decent record, Happy Go Lucky, if you go back to 2021, and when he was a novice, he finished second in the race for Kim Bailey off a mark of 147. 2 years later, he ran behind Korak Rambler off a mark of 152. And he had a lengthy period off. He's down to a mark of 140 now. now in training with Mel Rowley. He ran well again. He's another one. He, like Whistle Stop Tour, he finished 5th actually on trials day. He ran behind Muir Chase in the open handicap and shaped well for a long way, looking like the step back up and trip would suit. Looked like it, and he's only got the one entry and having ran well in the race twice previously. Obviously, you would imagine that he'll be coming here, and I think he's still available around 40-1. Certainly, plenty of 33s, non-runner, no bet. So I thought Richard made a good case for him, and I say, looking at from a trends perspective, it is a race. It is one of the handicaps where horses come back and perform well, and they haven't done so previously.
Never mind your 33s, you can get 40-1 about Happy Go Lucky with Jeff Banks Bet right now, if that's a horse that interests you. And when Richard Hall speaks, you should sit up and take notice. He's an 11-year-old though, and the older horses don't have the best of records, but he's a 40-1 shot, so I quite like that.
Again, with those age statistics this year, they could be in the handicaps. They could be less significant, maybe because there will be less younger horses in the races with those novice rules things. So again, as always, the stats and trends can be. You can take them, or you don't take them like that. That's literally what you're following by, and you do have to. You have to bear that in mind. I think this year that when we're looking towards the age and experience and things in the races, it could be a little bit different because of the eligibility rules. Yeah,
that's a fair point to mention. There's also a couple of ones that I thought were really relevant to be mentioning in terms of your excellent Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival betting guide, and not to be giving away all of the trends because you have to get your hands on the copy of it to get to see that. But there's a couple of things that really stood out. Only 2 Irish trained winners since 1967. Dundira was one of them, I remember. I can't quite... Oh, You Never Walk Alone.
Yeah, you were going to make me say that, weren't you?
I should have made you say it. Oh, what a bad broadcasting effort that was. I could have forced the Scouser to say... Oh, man. That's bad. That was... What a fumble from me there. I apologise to all the Liverpool fans. We could have got the Scouser to say... Sorry, Paul, who was the other one doing that? Oh, what a dum-dum I am. Oh, well, missed opportunity. And it's not just the fact that it's only 2 Irish trained winners. You've gone through it. 46 Irish horses to run in this race in the last 18 years, all of them beaten. And when you consider Fast or Slow was one of those horses, who Corrick Rambler was a really good horse, but Fast or Slow was a multiple Grade 1 winner. Corrick Rambler was getting lapped in Grade 1s. It just tells you how difficult it is for the Irish.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be a race that they target in great detail. Slow, in hindsight, was on a fair mark, but he did bump into a Grand National winner. So it's not many races we can say it throughout the week, but it isn't one of the races for the Irish. One of the positive trends: 5 of the past 10 winners had contested the Coral Gold Cup, the old Hennessy. Couple towards the top of the market there, ran in that race, Broadway Boy and Henry's Friends. So might be one to take on a more positive spin about. Yeah,
I'd be pretty interested in Broadway Boy. I need to do more of a deep dive into this race, but I like that
Broadway
horse.
Boy is like on his day, definitely he'd be definitely one to be interested. He just does throw in the odd bad race, and he's not always the most consistent. Obviously, he's got Aintree as his target, and the meetings are quite close together this year. But he's got got good course form when he was a novice. So if he's anywhere near his best, he'd definitely be a major player here.
The Changing Man's a bad favourite for this, isn't he?
He's been pretty consistent in big field handicaps this year, and he got his head in front last year. But last time out, finally, that race fell apart a little bit, though, to say the least. So,
completely.
I'd swear it personally.
Yeah,
you can see him travelling into the race. You can't. It's not hard to envisage him travelling strongly coming down the hill, but wouldn't be a favourite. I'd be looking to side with personally.
Oh, I think he'll puke when he sees the hill. Sorry, if you're having your dinner, your breakfast. Apologies for that mental image I've just given you, but I think he'll be reaching for the sick bag once he sees the hill. 6-1 is a terrible price about him. All right. Anything else for the shortlist for the Ultima before we switch to the next race?
No, that's as I say. You mentioned Johnny Who, John Joe and AJ O'Neill and JP McMahon have got a couple of horses I think are handicapped to win a decent race. Johnny Who being one. I've been a big fan of his since his point days, and Hastings the other one. But they've got multiple entries, so it's really, it's wait and see where they split up, because obviously they're not going to run against one another. Again, I think Hastings does like a bit of soft ground. The thing in his positive favour is the fact that he was able to win twice at Windsor from coming off. I think that track has shown that it definitely benefits those who are ridden positively. So the fact that he was able to win and in meet trouble in running on his penultimate start, I would uplift his form slightly. I think he ran well enough at Ascot last time. I thought maybe the Kim Muir for him and Johnny, who the national lunch chaser will come on to them, would be the more suitable options. And again, Hastings is one who was in the Midlands National on the Saturday. We shouldn't forget that John Joe O'Neill and JP McManus had time to get up. He was a short price favourite for the Kim Muir a few years ago, and instead he was rerouted to Uttoxeter and won the Midlands National. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that could happen. And again, the track, the flatter track and the softer ground might just be a little bit more in his favour to slow things down.
Where do you think Krabilly will go?
I thought he would have gone back to I thought he definitely would have gone back to the plate, because this time last year I was pretty keen on his chances, and he's now, I think he's £2 lower, isn't he, than he was last year. Hasn't really offered too much since. He was never really got in the race at Kenton last time. But I say he's got a mark. Yeah, he was 140, 38 now. Does have the option of going up in trip. I did think throughout last year he wanted 3 miles. And he tried him over 3 miles at Aintree, but that was at the end of the season, and he didn't jump particularly well. So again, I think it'll be a case of seeing where they shuffle up back, because he could come into the picture for the Ultima as well. But
see, I think you're right. I think Krabilly is going to go for the plate again.
Yeah, that's what I thought originally.
Which means Johnny Hughes going to go for this.
Okay. JP wouldn't have much else in there, would he? He's only got them two, hasn't he?
This is the only horse he'll have left then.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. I think Johnny Hugh wants further, though. His pedigree suggests that. So. We probably won't know we'll till next Sunday morning, when we'll see who gets declared in.
Yeah, it's a guess, and it is a guess, but I think a mark of 140 is good job, Frankie Tight Lips. Good job.
The only thing I'd say with Johnny Hugh is whether he goes well, really well when he's fresh. He won his bumper after a lengthy layoff. He won his maiden hurdle after a lengthy layoff. He won, and then his form last year just kind of plateaued a little bit. His earlier season form is set. He just got outpaced behind the jukebox man on his second start, I thought, of Fences, which was a respectable run. I just wonder, maybe, is it that he really does need to be fresh, and early season's the time to catch him? If that's the case, he's probably one for a big handicap in the autumn, maybe.
But sure, he is nice and fresh. He barely stretched his legs the other day at Windsor. Are you kidding me? It's a nice little gallop. Grand old day out for him. Lovely and fresh. Which means he hasn't had a run really since the 20th of December. So this is a thing of beauty. A mark of 140 for Johnny Who. Ultima. Everybody thinking he's going for the national, including me, thinking he's going for the national chase, and you line up here. A race that John Joe and JP have done so well in over the years. Oh, come on.
Yeah, but it is now a handicap, so he'll still be using his mark at 140 if he goes there.
Yeah, but you're going to have a couple of... I think you're going to have a couple of more dangerous unexposed horses in the national chase. You're not going to have unexposed horses in this. You know who they are. I put it this way. If the changing man is now 6-1, Johnny Who is 12s. If you're coming down to the last and it's the changing man and Johnny Who, just go over to Jeff Banks to collect your money, because Johnny Who will beat the changing man up that hill. Oh, I love it! I just love this game. See, you can't be questioning it when you've copped it on. When you've copped it on, it's all right. Okay. We'll go to the National Chase, which obviously Patrick Mullins wins every single year. He's super excited. He's trying to persuade Willie to run Dancing City. Oh no, they've spoiled the party and ruined Patrick's fun. So instead, it's going to be Now Is the Hour, who is the favourite at 100-30 with Jeff Banks bet. Haughty Color is 7-1. Oh, all right, Jeff. Challenge accepted. We'll do 8s, Captain Cody, a 9-1 shot. Transmission 12s. Let's start with Haughty Kalura, shall we? 7-1 from Jeff Banks Bet about Sean Bones' first ever Cheltenham Festival winner. Why will he win for Rebecca Curtis?
For him last time I was on, he was one of the horses I've already backed the festival. Also seeing at the end of back end of last season, we sponsored the race at Bangor on Day, which he won a novice hurdle under a penalty, and he looked all over physically there that he would improve for going chasing. Ran well first time as against Destroy the Evidence. He's in here and £7 better off if they meet again, and I'm a huge price, but I believe he's not an intended runner. Otherwise, he would have been one to look at. He then went to Aintree, won a small field race, which admittedly cut up a little bit. Didn't take much winning, but he proved that he was on the up when winning at the December meeting, jumping well, and beating Transmission by 2 3/4 lengths. Transmission has a £4 pull and did come from off the pace, suggesting that there's a chance he could reverse that form. But I think Haiti Calais was dossing a little in front. Had his prep over hurdles at Newbury on Betfair Hurdle Day, or William Hill Handicap Hurdle Day as it's known now, which pretty much nailed Rebecca Curtis's colours to the mast of the National Ante Chase, because he would have obviously needed to run again if they were going to think about going for the Ultima or Kim Muir, for example. So in a target, Rebecca's won it previously as well. I think he's on a fair mark. I think he's unexposed. I think stepping up to the marathon trip won't be an issue for him. His jumping was really good around Cheltenham. I think that's a positive to take. And there's plenty to like about him. He did actually finish behind Now Is the Hour in a hurdle race at Haydock last season, but I think Sean said he struggled to handle the heavy ground that day, and that would be one thing I'd be concerned about with the favourite Now Is the Hour. I think his form is much better on deep ground, so whether he gets his ideal conditions remains to be seen. I'd respect Transmission, I say, reopposing on slightly better terms, but I've been a Haiti Calais fan throughout the season, and I'm not going to desert him now. I think he goes there with a live chance. Yeah,
I really liked Peaky Boy for the graded race at Ascot a couple of weeks ago when he was making his debut for the O'Neill camp. That did not go well at all. But prior to that, he'd been a very good winner of a novice chase, and he hadn't been out of the first two in all of his starts for the Scudamore team and then the Nicky Henderson team. So I view him positively. Like, you can just write off that performance the other day. It didn't happen. But look,
I'd do the same. And that December, Transmission and Peaky Boy had won at the previous meeting at Cheltenham, so arrived in form. Moon d'Orange was fourth and came out and won on trials day, despite making a mess of the last.
Beachcombers come out and won by 10 lengths. I know he was pulled up, but still.
Yeah. So and even in defeat last week, Hillcrest didn't run too badly. So I think that was fairly strong form. And I say that was 3 mile, 1.5 on the new course. So I don't think stamina is going to be an issue. In fact, I think I wrote in the book at the start of the season, I envisaged him developing, Haiti Calais maybe developing into a Welsh national type for Rebecca Curtis one day. So I do think that stepping up in distance will suit. So I think that's a key piece of form with Transmission, but hopefully he will be able to uphold the form on reverse terms.
Yeah, very much hopefully. Now, it's not non-runner, no bet with Jeff Banks yet. Just bear that in mind, which is the way it should be.
The thing I'd say with Haiti Calais is this is where he's going to run. So if you want to take a chance, you're just taking a chance that he gets there. He's not going to be switched. He is still in the Brown advisory, but he doesn't go there. So
no,
he's not entered in any of the handicaps. He's not qualified. So if you'd rather take the 7-1 rather than I think he's around 4s, 5s, non-runner, no bet in place. And some. He might be one where you would take a chance because this is his target. So unless something goes wrong, he'll be running.
Yeah, there's quite a few horses that we're going to talk about in this podcast that I'm pretty certain they are going to be bigger prices on the day, just with the satchels open and bookmakers on track, the exchanges in full flow. Things are going to change for some of the horses. Not this one. This fellow will be favourite. And you're getting 7-1 about him now.
I don't think he'd be 7-1, no. Definitely not. And I say, and if we're talking about good soft ground on the first day, I think certainly that'll sway things, and the top two could flip-flop there, I'd say.
I would be taking that 7-1, and the way you do that is go to jeffbanks.bet, use your promo code FFP500. You get 10% back of any net losses after your first month of betting up to £500 Perfect timing for the Cheltenham Festival, but there won't be any net losses, not a guarantee, because Paul Ferguson is marking your card with the cheat sheet for the handicaps at Cheltenham, and we've got a whole load of great guests coming your way on the Final Furlong podcast who will mark your card for Cheltenham as well. This is one of the strongest fancies of the week. I think he's going to be favourite on the day. You're getting 7-1 now. Take advantage of that. jeffbanks.bet. Use the promo code FFP500. You're eligible for £5 off after your first month of betting. £5 off? What am I talking about? That's the Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival betting guide. I'm getting my promos mixed up. You're eligible for 10% back of any net losses after your first month of betting. jeffbanks.bet. Use the promo code FFP500. Sign up now. Take full advantage. That 7-1 is going to be gone, I suspect, very, very soon. We'll go to the Thursday and the plate. Betting is headed by Jaguar, and I know he's a horse you're quite keen on. He's heading the betting around about 7-1 for Jeff Banks bet. Why are you so keen on Jaguar? And for that matter, why are so many other people so keen on Jaguar?
I'm keen on Jaguar for the novice handicap. Chase, which opens the cards. It's first race, second race on day 3. He is actually eligible to run in the plate, haven't had the 4 runs, so I'm just hoping that he doesn't switch.
Well, Cribilli is probably the more likely one then, because we were talking about him for the Ultima, but he's an 8-1 shot with Jeff Banks bet for the race.
Yeah, so if he did switch, I was speaking to Josh Guerrero Bangor on Wednesday, and as far as he's concerned, the intention is to go for the novices handicap. We'll touch on him in more detail there, so hopefully that's where he'll go. In terms of the plate, assuming Jaguar goes for the novice handicap, although the plate was quite open again, that's another race where course form, and we see plenty of these handicaps over an intermediate trip at Cheltenham throughout the season. Every meeting bar October, I think, has at least one. Moon D'Orange, he could go in either race. I would actually, if I had a novice who was eligible for this, Moon D'Orange haven't had the 5 runs, I would look towards the plate, because you're going to come up against less unexposed Irish novices here. So I think it probably mightn't take as much winning as the Jack Richards novice handicap. Moon D'Orange and Grandeur Dame would be a couple to look at. They finished first and second on trials day. The runner-up's got a £3 pull for a short head defeat, but I think if you watch that back, I think everyone would say Moon D'Orange is value for a good bit more, given the mistake that he made. Sean done well to keep the partnership intact. Again, Cribilli was on the short list here, having finished second off a mark of 140 last year, now down to 138 in arguably what weaker race. As you say, there's going to be, in terms of weakness, I'm talking about the fact that there's less unexposed novices going to be taking the chance this year. Gemaran's another one. He's a little bit disappointing last time, but he's only £6 higher than when winning the December Gold Cup. Venetia Williams has a good record in this race, so there'd be just a few for the shortlist at this stage. It's hard to be too conclusive in this race. I say with so many variables of horses with different options, I'm not sure what the final field will look like, but you probably do want to look towards a horse with Cheltenham form in the book already.
Yeah, you're also looking for horses who are younger than 9. And,
yeah, but again, that's statistics normally when novices have come to the fore. So the age statistic ones, I say, I'd be slightly, I wouldn't be hanging my hat on them as much this year in the handicaps.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair point, actually, with the change. I think that's going to apply more to the hurdles, though, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. The weight is a big factor. Only 2 winners this century have carried more than 11 stone 4. That's a kick in the stones to anybody who is fancying Jinny's Destiny, for example. Yeah,
and one thing I would say on here is probably, I think we've written as a positive trend is respect horses who race prominently, and that's significant on the new course over this sort of trip. It does tend to favour those who like to race up with the speed over this distance, at least anyway. Maybe not so much in the Muir where they can come from behind. So bear that in mind. You want a horse who jumps well and likes to be ridden quite positively, and will be able to hold his position.
Now, that being said, just very briefly on Jinny's Destiny, I'd be very keen to get your thoughts on him. He was sent off 3-1 favourite for the big Gold Cup at the start of the season back in November at the November Open meeting. He was second at Aintree in the Grade 1 to Il Était Temps. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him this season. He was obviously second at the Cheltenham Festival to Grey Dawning, and he was a big winner of the handicap earlier last
But he
season,
won
the January meeting. So he's won off a mark of 147 in novice company. He's down to 149, and you're getting a pretty big price about him. Now, the weight's not ideal, but this is Paul Nicholls in a handicap at Cheltenham. Like, surely he's been trying with him, it hasn't worked, and now he's just found himself of a decent mark.
Yeah, he's just come down. I just don't worry about it. Maybe he just had that harder season last year. He hasn't quite been performing to the same level. I thought he was a certainty to run a big race in November on his comeback, despite the mark of 155. So as you say, he's £6 lower than that. He's slightly disappointing then. Obviously, Paul's horse is seemingly in a bit better form now, which is good to see. He also ran on trials day down the field. Again, I think a slightly bit of better ground will help him. As you say, he was the one who won. He won the time form novices handicap last year. The Jaguar won this year. As you say, he's only £2 higher now. So strictly in terms of handicapping, he's definitely got a big say. But I just do wonder if maybe last season left a little mark on him, and he just hasn't quite been in the same form this year. Yeah,
that's definitely a concern in the back of my mind. 25-1 is a fair compensation, though.
Exactly. That kind of price, you're taking a chance. You don't mind taking a chance. It's when you're talking, if you're trying to gloss over issues like that with short price horses, a different matter. So
yeah, and look, we're talking about Harry Cobden, Paul Nicholls. They'll ride him prominently. That's the best way to get the best performance out of him as well.
You've seen his record at Cheltenham last year. He obviously needed his first start of the season. His 3 starts at Cheltenham, and his handicap mark went from 133 to 155. Then didn't do anything at all wrong when he was second. Lost a little in defeat behind Grey Dawn, and I think, although he finished runner-up at Aintree, it's probably just one start too many at the end of a long season, and saying, just if he can recapture that early season form or mid-season form from last year, he'd definitely be a player.
They sent him off 7-2 joint favourite with Moon D'Orange, who won last time out in the big handicap on Trials Day. You're basically backing Paul Nicholls to have a horse fit. I'll take that bet. 25-1 with Jeff Banks' bet about Jinny's Destiny. I think that's fair. He's very high on the shortlist for me. Anybody else that we should be mentioning before we switch to our next race?
No, that was all I had for the place. I think another horse, though, who is probably, again, from John Joe and AJ O'Neill's Springwell Bay. It's got a variety of options. He could even drop back and run in the Arkle. I wouldn't think that's beyond the realms either. He should get his ground, really, if it's going to dry out. He likes better ground, I think. Excuse me. I think an intermediate trip is really what he's after. Again, he would have been one who would have been running in the Golden Miller had it still been a Grade 1. Whether they force him to carry top weight in the novices hand or remains to be seen. He could come here if Conflated were to run. He'd be carrying 11-11. I think his mark, I just think by winning when he won on New Year's Day, he just kind of let his mark go, which I think if he'd have arrived here on the back of that defeat to Django Bay, I think it would have been a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think they have a choice but to run him in a Grade 1 now off the mark he has. He'd be carrying top weight in this race, as you said. It's 154. By the way, just bear this in mind. You and I had a conversation a couple of years ago where people were doing podcasts and saying, it's going to be a good to firm ground Cheltenham Festival. The forecast is so dry. And it was this time of year. And then there was like monsoon-like conditions and an Ergamine sluices up in the Queen Mother Champion Chase in a bog. So let's not get too carried away with the weather forecast now. But as things stand, if Cheltenham was tomorrow, it would be good ground. It wouldn't be really because they'll just soak the track.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of softening at the minute from what I'm hearing, but the forecast is dry now, so you'd expect it to dry out. They'd never let it start on good ground anyway, so it'll be at minimum good to soft. I'd like to see a good soft Cheltenham, to be honest, because we've had festivals of late, so it would be nice to get a bit of nice spring ground. He's just talking about Springwell Bay. If he wouldn't have run on New Year's Day, he would have had the 3 runs. He still would have been eligible for the novice handicap off a mark of 145. That would have made a lot more appeal than 154 now. So, but you would have been. You don't want to see. That's the other thing. You don't want to see horses saved from mid-December for the Cheltenham Festival. So. Fair play to them. He came out, won a valuable prize on New Year's Day. But if you were mine now, he'd be one I'd consider waiting for Aintree for the Grade 1, to be honest, over 2.5. I think that would suit him down to the ground, with there being no Grade 1 for him. So, but I think from what they're saying, we're pretty sure he's going to run. I'm touching on, I think, are we going to go on to the novice handicap next, are we?
Yeah.
I can't imagine John Joe Jr. will want I'll want him running there because I don't think you'll want the clash between Springwell Bay and Jaguar.
Yeah, they won't run him in that race, I don't think. Gay Smith is a big listener to the Final Furlong podcast. She absolutely loves the show. She's a big fan of yours.
Is she? Nice to hear.
Can't imagine she's going to be too pleased, though. We blew the handicap mark. This is the problem. Like, you want these horses running. You need horses running. We can't be complaining about it when they do, but a mark of 145 would have been absolutely.
No, I was just making the point that you would have made more appeal, but they're fair play. They went and won a decent race earlier in the season, and for me, I'd be looking at Aintree over 2.5. But I say that I know we're only talking about the handicaps, but I haven't done the previews the last couple of days. That Arkle's going to cut up to a small field.
Yeah, it is.
You could run him off the pace, and then there's going to be plenty of pace in it, and come and pick up some nice prize money. So they've probably got a tough decision to make there, whether they want to look for some slim pickings in the Arkle or go for one of the handicaps off a really lofty mark.
Okay, there's only one horse that interests me for the plate, and that's Jinny's Destiny. The 25-1, I think, is very, very fair with Jeff Banks' bet, assuming that Paul Nicholls can get a horse fit, and I'm pretty certain he can. Is there anybody else we should mention before we wrap it up?
No, it'd just be if Jaguar switched, because I'm going to give him a good positive mention now. I'd still be with him there, whatever race he ran in.
Okay. And Krabilly?
Again, just purely on the basis, time and time again. It's referenced quite a lot in the guide, and you'll hear it on various previews and the preview circuits, etc. These handicaps at Cheltenham invariably come back and do it again, and a lot of that is down to the tempo of the races. A lot of the horses like a strongly run race and truly run gallop that you don't get throughout the season. So that is why you tend to see horses come back and repeat an earlier performance. So the fact I was sweet on him last year off 140 hasn't done anything in the meantime that would make you sit up and take note, but down to a mark of 138 and given his connections, you would have to give him some serious consideration.
Yeah, he's getting shorter in the betting all the time, but 140 in the race last year, down to 138. Oh, Frankie tight lips. Chef's kiss. Can they now pull it off on the day? That's the question. Jinny's Destiny for me, but Krabilly, massive shout for him as well. Right, the Novices Handicap Chase. This is the race that Jaguar will be particularly interesting for, and Jeff Banks is going 11-2 about him. Asian Master 9-1. Just bear in mind that the young Costello fellow will be riding him. He's like 7'5", but he's a good jockey, and he's a giant. Like, he's the size of Paul and me put together. And he's a very accomplished rider as well, but just it will not be Paul Townend, it'll be him. Nuremberg Ring.
He won on a good bumper horse last week, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah. No, he's a good rider.
Nice horse,
he's a good rider. Nuremberg Ring, 9s, Firefox, grade 1 horse in a handicap, surely has to be interesting wherever he goes.
I think he's going there. I listened to Gordon on a couple of things, and he kind of implied that this is where he goes. So in terms of weight for the race, at the minute, Springwell Bay and Croke Park are in there off 154. I can't see Springwell Bay run here. Don't think Croke Park will be running here off 154 personally. Jinko Blue apparently misses the festival now and didn't please, or something I heard somewhere.
Yeah,
that might have been on road to Cheltenham yesterday. So that would leave Firefox with top weight. So the weights are looking like they're going to rise by £4. Just something to bear in mind.
Yeah, for sure. This is a list of horses that could have been at one point Arkle contenders, and it just hasn't worked out for them in one way or another. But Firefox would be a really interesting one. Answer to KF has got Cheltenham Festival form, having placed in the Martin Pipe last year. That makes him very, very interesting. He was a good winner over fences. And No Flies on him has to win this weekend to be certain of getting into Cheltenham. So just bear that in mind. You're going to see him on Saturday. He was supposed to run on Sunday. The race was cancelled at the last second. But he could be a really interesting one. And he was a good winner on his hurdling debut, but it's been a struggle for him ever since. Maybe it's been a long term.
Yeah, he'll pick up a penalty if he wins at the weekend. I think he might just about sneak in anyway. The thing that I think, other than Jaguar, I think JP's horse for this was going to be Waterford Whispers, but he was obviously forced to miss a couple of engagements recently, so he wasn't qualified. Again, I think he's entered on Monday in the beginner's chase at Leopardstown. So he didn't get his third run in time. Jaguar, I've been keen throughout the season for this race. He won. He was pitched in quite deep at Weatherby first time out, actually, in the Bobby Renton, which is often a decent handicap, over 2.5 miles. He won despite an indifferent round of jumping. He then went to Bangor, again, like Haiti Calais, who'd have thought Bangor on Deer would be the springboard to Cheltenham Festival earlier in the season or last spring. I'm hoping that maybe Lightning will strike twice. He beat Lowry's Bar on that occasion, and that form has worked out extremely well. Lowry's Bar won his next two, ran well in a graded company before disappointing last weekend in the big race at Kempton. The fifth horse from that race, Tanganyika, probably just butchered his pronunciation for Venetia Williams, has won a couple of times since an alternate entry year, so that's absolute rock solid form. He then went to Utoxeter, suffered his only defeat over fences when beaten behind Jinko Blue. Again, probably a graded performer in a handicap. He'd have finished second that day, but for a mistake at the last. And the horse who did finish second also won next time out. So again, rock solid form off the same mark. He went to the aforementioned time form Novices Handicap Chase on Trials Day, where he beat stablemate Billy, the Real Big Red. He runs at the weekend, so again, we might get to see another form boost there. He's running the big race at Newbury. Masaccio, who we touched on earlier, and of course Whistle Stop Tour were further back. So that had the feeling of a fairly strong renewal. He travelled with it, despite being weak in the market, he travelled with ease and jumped really well. It's probably his best round of jumping so far that I thought at Cheltenham, and getting that course experience is important because a lot of his earlier form was on flatter tracks. Up £7, more than fair. There's not much not to like about him. He goes on better ground, soft ground, ideal to him really, but he does go on better ground, and I just can't see him not being involved in the finish. Really, I think he's sure to go well.
What do you make of Blizzard of Oz? And I mention him because when I interviewed Danny Mullins yesterday, he happened to bring up Key to Bourbon going for the Brand Advisory, which seems like pie in the sky stuff, given the fact that he's only won a novice chase. But one of those was beating Blizzard of Oz at Goran. He's since been sent off favourite for a race back at Goran, a race that I was there. Myself and Barry were there. Actually, Barry was doing the MC in the parade ring. Barry, who was excellent, by the way, on the Yes No game show for the favourites for the Cheltenham Festival, and we'll have Barry back on the show very soon. But mark of 145 is probably disappointing to the Mullins camp. I'm sure they were hoping to get better than that, and they have been trying with them. Yeah, Blizzard of Oz.
Interesting. Darryl Jacob wrote the foreword in the book this year, and that was the one horse that was the first horse that he mentioned for Mooney and Suede. Was in for this race. He didn't give much of a mention. He was on the preview panel with me on Monday, and going digressing slightly, but the one he seemed most keen on for the double green was Jasmine DeVoe in the Albert Bartlett to give him a really positive. Jeez. Yeah, I wasn't convinced, but he thinks the new course and the longer trip will suit. He seemed quite confident about a big run.
Have they taken out the hurdles entirely?
Yeah, he's running the bumper again.
Yeah, if he's running in the bumper, he'd have a chance. Yeah, that fella's got no chance, I don't think. I really like Darryl. I'm a big fan of Darryl, and he's got a massive future in broadcasting as well. So, look, if he's talking him up, we should be taking notice of it, but I don't know about him now. Blizzard of Oz, though, would interest me to a certain extent. Anything else here that we should be mentioning?
Yeah, Asia Masters one that I've mentioned earlier in the week a couple of times, but his price has contracted a bit. He's coming second favourite now. I think he's interested in the fact that even though he's qualified, some people might think he's only had the 2 runs, but he actually ran in a novice Hunter's Chase back in May 2023, I think it was. As you already alluded to, will be ridden by ridden by Thomas Costello. But his 2 efforts over fences this season, he was third behind Madgeborough and third in a similar event behind Mr. Giff. There's a couple of form lines there to suggest there were similar runs. Mark of 144 seems fair enough. Obviously ran in last year's festival, finished 4th in the Supreme. I've always thought stepping up to 2.5 miles would really suit him and could bring about much further improvements. The one thing, he hasn't been overly impressive in his jumping. He's a little bit flat-footed, but he's been assured enough. And I think, going up in trips slightly slower in that regard. So he'd definitely be one because he's got graded form going back into handicap, as you already touched upon. Answer to Keith ran well last year in the Martin Pipe, and will be another who goes there. But he's a fair bit higher now, I would say, in the ratings.
Did Tullyhill? Look, he's qualified.
Yeah, he is, because he has had 3 runs with not 3 completed runs. He was pulled up, wasn't he, last time?
Yeah, he was, and I didn't really understand why he was pulled up the last day. But anyway, he's been given a mark of 146. Obviously, he was second to Mr. Giff, but prior to that, he was second to Madgeborough.
Yeah, exactly. His form ties in with Asian Master, doesn't it? So there's not much between them, really. But
one will have Paul Townend. And it will probably be
good
him.
He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to leave that. There wasn't really much explanation for that. He was never going, was he? That day being special gather, he never seemed to be. Never seemed to be travelling. He was pulled up fairly early as well, wasn't he? So he's at least he's coming on the back of a relatively light campaign. But
Vet found Gelding to have a superficial wound on his medial right hind, but was otherwise post-race normal. So that's why Townsend pulled him up. Well, he won't have a wound when he's running in this race.
No. He'd need to settle, wouldn't he, a bit over the 2.5 miles. But again, he'd been great at form to the hill. He was sent off favourite for the Supreme last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's with the same sire as Dinast. I like him. I think he might be a horse who could end up being forgotten about a little bit. I'm not sure Nuremberg Ring jumps well enough. Answer to KF is the one that I'm very interested in, but sure, look, he's well found in the market now at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Will we switch to the Kim Muir?
We can.
All right. The Kim Muir, which was won in devastating style by I Know the Way You're Thinking, which there's now a rumour going around that he's about to be supplemented for the Gold Cup. Isn't it interesting? The McManus team pulled him out because they've got all these other horses, and then suddenly they've got to rely on him to be the horse that can go and beat Galop on the Champ. More on that to come in the Final Furlong podcast, and it could just be a rumour. But anyway, Kim Muir, Midnight Hour Fred is the 10-1 joint favourite with Sama Jest, who Willie Mullins described as a future Gold Cup horse last season. Hasn't quite worked out that way, but maybe he and Patrick Mullins will just murder the opposition in this race. Daily Present, 12-1. Now as the hour is also in this race. He's 12s. Mr. Van Gogh, Johnny Who, we think he's going elsewhere. Will Do, 14s. Hashting, 16s. And 9 Graces is a 16-1 shot as well. That's the horse that Barry Doyle is very, very keen on. 9 Graces, 16s. But who does Paul Ferguson have on his shortlist for the Kim Muir?
Yeah, actually, I thought 9 Graces was impressive last time. I thought she'd have a chance if going over. Hastings was the one long term I've been thinking for this race, but the closer I get to it, and I haven't seen the entries and the weights again, I think maybe he could be one for the Midlands National, especially if JP relies on Sama Jest. Actually, just before we came on air, I was watching an interview with Patrick Mullins, and Patrick suggested that he is likely to run here, but Derek will probably ride rather than himself. So that's what he suggested. That was what he said. So again, he was alluding to the fact that Willie has still never won a handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival. So he wasn't overly positive about any of the handicap chases.
Well, you know why he's never won a handicap chase at Cheltenham?
Because he doesn't land the run on merit throughout the season.
Exactly. Willie Mullins horses are always trying. That's why he's never won a handicap race at Cheltenham.
Right.
Proceed.
Go on. Sama Jest, to be honest, you could make case for him having a similar profile to I Know the Way You're Thinking from last year, because again he's a novice who is going to get in here. He's got other options. I would think this does look like it could be the race for him now. He actually ran in the same Grade 1 at Limerick. He was behind Impere Pass. I Know the Way You're Thinking ran behind Gaelic Warrior in the race last year before he won. He beat Shannon Royal the time before that, who had form tying in with Dancing City. So I think a mark of 140 looks reasonable enough without screaming he's well in. He was actually sent off near enough favourite for the Coral Cup off the same mark last year. I think the step up and trip definitely seems to have suited him, and he definitely won, I'd say, for the short list out of those towards the top of the market. Mr. Van Gogh, there's one up there. I think he'd be one again who I'd be worried about conditions for, because he really wants it hop deep. So if the forecast is right, he'd be one to be a little. But those towards the head of the market, Sama Jest will be of slight interest for me.
This almost seems too obvious. This is the very same thing as last year. I Know the Way You're Thinking goes to Limerick. He was closer, to be fair, to Gaelic Warrior, but that's where he goes, and then rocks up at Cheltenham for a massive step up and trip and goes and wins. Same thing again, only this time around this fella goes to Ferryhouse, gets the win. Now Derek O'Connor is going to take over.
Well, that was just what he was implying. I actually, I suppose he would have the retained option, wouldn't he, with JP? Just talking about Patrick Mullins, I thought earlier in the season, I thought this is the way they might have gone with Transmission, and given that, I'd have give him I'd have him as a danger to Haiti Calais. I wouldn't mind Transmission coming to this race. He won the amateur. He won the race under Patrick Mullins at the November meeting. And I thought at that point maybe that this was the long-term plan. So if Neil Mulholland opts to switch Transmission here, I don't think that should be underestimated. He actually ran in the Cleaver the last time. And Neil ran the Druid's nephew, I think it was, in the same race en route to winning the Ultima. So it's a route he's taken before. So I'd be interested in Transmission, I say, if he deviates or is rerouted from the National Hunt Chase to here.
Okay, a couple of others for me to throw at you. Jericho Rock spent over 2 years off the track, but he's had a decent enough comeback. He was entered to run in a race at the weekend. Last weekend, I should be saying, he didn't turn up. This is a horse who was second in the Ultima to Corrick Rambler off a mark of 138. Third to Lamilos in the big, what should be known as the Hennessy, if we're all being fair. And he's down to a mark of 131 and he's still only 9. Yeah,
he was the other one who at the end of the show on Monday, when Richard Hoyles put up alongside Happy Go Lucky again from that previous festival form with handicap mark having dropped. He's still yet to win a race over fences and 7 starts, but I thought there was enough, again, like Happy Go Lucky, but there was enough encouragement on his comeback run to suggest that he retains a lot of his old ability. Like you say, when he was runner-up to Corrick Rambler, beating less than 3 lengths in 2022, that was off a mark of 138. When he ran the Hennessy later that year, that was off a mark of 139. Down to 131 now. So if David Pipers can get him there in that sort of shape, then he'd be another one definitely for the shortlist. Massive
player, Jericho Rock, and one of my favourite horses in training. It's just great to see him back, but he has got so much ability. And as you said, he's shaped like it's still there. So I'm trying to see what price he's been put in by. Jeff thinks so little of him. He has not priced him up. Is that possible? Jeff, no! 28-1. 28-1 with Jeff Banks bet for Jericho Rock. Jeez, that's big in my opinion now. That's very, very, that's so big. I need to go and place a bet on him the second we end this show. FFP 500 jeffbanks.bet. Get 5%. What am I talking about? Get 10% of any net losses back after your first month of betting, up to £500. The other one is Some Scope, who we're going to see win the Grinthorpe this weekend, and he is generally a 20-1 shot. Jeff Banks bet going 33s. I like him a lot.
Who's that? Sorry, Some Scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't one on my short list, to be honest. The 3 I had down were the ones we already called Hastings, Jericho Rock, and Samajest.
Okay.
Where's he going this weekend, do you say?
He's gonna win the Grinthorpe this weekend, I think.
No, I haven't even done the weekend cards yet because I've had so many previews on. So that's for as soon as we finish here. I'm onto that one, onto Saturday's cards.
Nice. Well, you can get going on that in a few minutes. So your short list is pretty similar to mine. Samajest, Jericho Rock, and Hastings is your third.
Hastings, well, I say, as we've already said, wherever he goes, yeah.
Okay, I'd replace Hastings with Some Scope and big word for 9 Graces as well. Our favourite race, the race we can't wait for, the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual. Yay! I'm pretty sure I've backed 2 winners of this race, and the last time was nearly 10 years ago. So give me some good advice here, Paul Ferguson. It's badly needed. Liberty Hunter heads the betting with Unexpected Party. Last year's winner, 10-1, each of 2 with Jeff Banks bet. Jazzy Maddie is a 12-1 shot. The king of PRs, whichever one you want to go for the very shrewd Gavin Cromwell. 12s. Touch Me Not. We'll probably go for the Arkle. 12s and Firefoxes, similar price as well. Thoughts on the Grand Annual?
I thought the King of PR he's been pretty consistent through this year. Obviously won the Dan and Joe and Moore Memorial last time. Consistent performer, can see him going well. Likewise, stablemate, my mate Mozzie, bit of a frustrating character, but again, he's one you could see travelling into, especially if the ground dries. Whether he comes up the hill as strongly as you'd like remains to be seen. Obviously, he did win as a novice going back a couple of years now. I think last year's form, again, this is another race which horses who've run well in it before can come back and do it. I think last year's front 2 are obvious contenders, and I think that's why I go towards the head of the bet. And if you're actually looking on it, Liberty Hunter has gone up £12 since last year's race, and Unexpected Party is only £6 higher. So the weights would tell you that he's more likely to confirm the form. I think the race will be run to suit Liberty Hunter, and I think he's improved since last year, but it remains to be seen whether he'll run here or he'll take his chance in the Champion Chase. One I like just further down, if he turns up. Also have regular readers of Jumpers Follow My Work will know that I've been a big fan of Primos for some time. Another horse from the Lucinda Russell yard. He actually ran against his now stable point to point, funnily enough. He bought the two of them out the same point to point. Last year, he started the campaign looking really promising, winning what looked like a decent novice hurdle at Ayr. His form tailed off a bit mid-season, but he bounced back in the spring. So nobody likes better ground, likes to be in fresh. And it was a similar story. He was really impressive first time out at Weatherby, being a subsequent winner. He ran it behind Peaky Boy in the November race we touched him on earlier, and he looked like he was a non-stayer, so he came back to 2 miles. And he won a match race recently. Obviously, you can't read too much into that, but probably a confidence-boosting effort. I did have in my mind that he would wait for either the Red Rum or Aintree if he got into that, or there's a novice handicap chase at the Scottish Grand National meeting at Ayr, and from a mark of 130, he'd make appeal there. But I say, if the weather forecast is right and it continues to dry out, it might be that Lucinda and Skew and his connections are tempted to have a look at this off a mark of 130. And if he gets in down the foot of the weights at around 33 to 1, I wouldn't let him go unbacked.
Okay, name of that horse again?
Primos.
You got to have that horse on your list. That's our look at the Grand Annual. That's our look at the Handicap Chasers. Which Handicap Chaser are you most excited about?
Haiti, I'd say. It's him and Jaguar are the two I've backed earlier in the year for the festival, so I'll be leaning towards them. But yeah, Haiti Claire's will be the one.
I could give you a massive hug. I can't wait to see that Haiti Claire line up, and I think the 7-1 with Jeff Banks bet is very, very fair. Just on a side note, I love Cheltenham. It's an amazing sporting event. I cannot wait for it. This Thursday is an absolute shambles. Ryanair Mayor's Novices Hurdle Grade 2, Limited Novices Handicap Chase, a Pertemps Handicap Hurdle, a Handicap Chase, and a Handicap Chase with 2 Grade 1s in between. It's grand for Paul and I. We don't have to pay. And by the way, I'm not going. I don't feel like it's the... I'm not sure. I could go. I could be in studio in London, or I could be there on track. I'm very appreciative of the work I do, and I absolutely love Cheltenham. £100 for the club enclosure. Right. We'll switch to the handicap hurdlers. Very, very briefly on the Fred Winter. Willie Mullins has never won this race. I think he's going to win it this year. I think he's going to win it this year.
North from 22 in this. He's had a couple of agonising defeats. None more so than Gaelic Warrior.
Oh, horses that should have been horses that were going to be Triumph Hurdle contenders this year, and it just hasn't happened for them. Could end up being good enough to just go and win this race. He might end up winning the Triumph Hurdle, by the way. It's possible. Lady Vague Allen improves. Wouldn't rule that out at all. I'd say most people are going to be looking at Willie DeHooley and expecting him to come good, and he's 8-1 with Jeff Banks bet. But Mercia is the one. She's 12-1. She was second on soft ground last time out in the Nace race that is responsible for multiple winners of this race. Band of Outlaws won it. Aramax, Brazil. 2023, when Sir Alan won, he beat Jazzy Matty. God rest poor Michael O'Sullivan. Last year, Eagle Fang won, but Lark in the Morning was supposed to run in that race and was a late withdrawal. Like, that's the big pointer to the Fred Winter, and Mercia finished that race off really, really well. And the horse who beat her absolutely bolted up on his next start. She'll win this.
Yeah, I don't know whether she might go for the Triumph. She's going to mark a 1.36, same as Lady Vega Allen. Off the same mark, I'd have been more leaning towards Lady Vega Allen, I think. But with the fillies allowance, I would be surprised if she ran in and didn't run under the allowance in the Triumph, to be honest. And there was another from that Nace race who caught my eye, maybe more so earlier in the season, was the 4th place Holy See. William Davis runner. He travels noticeably well, and he was beaten narrowly by Charles the time before. I think Charles looks like he's probably going to take his chance in the Triumph too. He's got a mark of 119. He'd be one to note. I didn't have an overly strong view, to be honest. I think Stencil was also liked in France on his first couple of starts, and he was disappointed. Then he ran well, I thought, behind East India Dock last time, but perhaps showed his hand a little bit too much, maybe in the to a mark of 135 now. Couple I had just on the short list, but it was very tentative at this stage. I haven't really delved into this race with huge detail just yet. The two Joseph O'Brien runners, naturally nimble. I thought was interesting, and Beyond Your Dreams. Again, she's a filly who she just got up a Fairy House last time, and she was beaten the time before by Total Luck, who's a shorter in the market. But I thought she looked like there was plenty to work on with her. And again, a mark of 117, so these will be looking right down up towards the foot of the weights if sneaking in. But at this stage, I wouldn't have an overly strong view on the Fred Winter.
I'd have Naturally Nimble fairly high on the list as well. He beat Willie de Hooley first time out on soft ground. Then he's only 8 lengths off Hello Neighbour in his next start, and essentially they would have just gone, all right, can't win a Triumph Hurdle, but we might be able to go and win a Fred Winter.
I think it's interesting then that they didn't run again. So he's had the 3 runs, and then they probably just said, oh, right, that'll do. Obviously, same connections as Lark in the morning. So I think a bit probably suits him. He was well beaten first time out, wasn't he, on soft ground? So I think a bit of nicer ground would probably suit him. He's by too darn hot, so you'd think so.
And 12 of the 20 winners had exactly 3 starts, and 12 of the 20 winners carried 11 stone or more. That applies to Naturally Nimble, both of those two. 2 of the last 6 trained by Joseph O'Brien. So respect the French breds, respect the German breds for sure, but Naturally Nimble would be pretty high on both of our shortlists, especially seeing as he is a German bred as well. Actually, he fits an awful lot.
I think he's the only one in there, and German breds have a remarkable record in the race. Actually, since 2020, only 5 have run, and 2 have been successful. And Gaelic Warrior would have made that 3 from 5 had he not just been touched off. So even allowing for that defeat, a 40% strike rate is pretty good. So yeah, he'd be one. Certainly from a trends perspective, he ticks plenty of boxes, and he'd be one to look at from that regard. Obviously, Joseph has a good record in the race as well.
Yeah,
and I think the fact that we haven't seen him since Christmas time suggests that they were happy to wait for this.
Okay, shortlist of Mercia. I think she's a huge player. Naturally Nimble, and at a big price, Holy See, who is a massive price with Jeff Banks bet. As we're recording, you can get 33 to 1 about Holy See for this race, and that's what Jazzy Matty did, was fourth in that Nace race, and then came out and goes and wins the.
Yeah, he travelled through the earlier races a bit better, and just suggested that a strongly run race might suit him again. He might be one who likes fast pace on better ground, so wouldn't be a huge shock to see him outrun those odds for sure.
Okay. One of the big betting races of the week will be the Coral Cup, and there's been a monster plunge on Kopek Demi. If you think this is the race he's going to go for, 7 to 1 is the industry best price about him with Jeff Banks bet. 7 to 1 Kopek Demi. It's 8 to 1 about Be Aware. Altabelli, 10 to 1 winner on the podcast for Peter Michael very recently. Peter tipping the weekend horses with Andy Newton. That podcast is available for you now, and Peter Michael will be here previewing a lot of the Cheltenham races as well. I think Jericho de Repene would be fascinating and far more interesting in this than on the new course over 3 miles in the Pertemps, where stamina would be an issue for him. In my mind, if he comes to the Coral Cup instead, he'd be a monster player, and 14 to 1 would be way too big. He might end up winning the Pertemps anyway. Langerdan, no. In fact, if he rocks up in this race, it's an absolute joke. And Ballyadam has got interesting form, particularly in this race a year ago.
Yeah, Ballyadam's got a good pull at the weight to it. Langerdan obviously won the last twice off 141. He's up to 158 now. Ballyadam was second last year off 147. He's only 151, so he's only £4 higher. I wouldn't disagree with you about Jericho de Repene. Could be an interesting runner if switched from. You assume he's going for the Pertemps because he qualified last time at Exeter, but again, not inconceivable that he would turn up here. And I think Nicky Henderson and JP have got imposed twat in this and the Martin Pipe, so maybe one will run here and one will represent them. I think it depends probably on whether Jericho the Repenate would he get in as well. I think he would probably just about sneak in up 135 looking at recent years. So in terms of Kopech to me, who knows where he's going to turn up. He's obviously favourite now for the Coral Cup, the County Hurdle, and the Martin Pipe. I would think this was possibly the least likely, maybe. I thought watching his French racing, because he is actually mentioned in Jumpers to Follow, I thought maybe he'd been more of a 2-miler or a strongly run. I thought the County would have been the race for him personally, but the market move maybe suggests the Martin Pipe. Perhaps with it being an 0-1, 4-5, do you think they'd avoid the classier types by running in that? Maybe that's the thinking behind it. But if you go back through his form, all of his form, his 3 wins were all over 2 mile 2 on soft to heavy ground, which is the only description that we seem to get. But he was ridden positively, jumps well. He does travel quite strongly, which led me to thinking that the County Hurdle might be the one for him. And the horse he beat last time was a horse called Caram Le Rouge, and he beat him 4.5 lengths off level weights. Now, he had earlier beaten Kitzbühel and given him £4. Kitzbühel obviously is now with Willie Mullins, has won his 2 starts in Ireland and is now rated 153. And the third from that listed race at Auteuil himself came out and won a listed race and then finished second to Kingland, who's one of the leading 5-year-olds in France and 4-year-olds at the time in the Prix-Renard de Vivier. So his form is pretty strong, certainly race, and from a marker 136, wherever he goes, he's going to be hugely popular. But if there was one horse at the festival he could be completely wrong with the handicap market, it could be him.
Yeah. At this point, do you think that he's a horse that we should be paying really close attention to, or do you just have to go, we've missed the price with him now?
I'd still say I would imagine he'll go off a lot shorter than he is now. Still, whatever race they end up running. Say if I just looking at watching his racing back, I'd have said he might have been more suited to the County. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with him. And I did hear a snippet yesterday with Charlie Swan saying when they bought him, he thought he was going to be an Arkle horse. So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, I think he's got a bit of pace and think he's a Grade 1 horse. He didn't elaborate on whether he thought he was well handicapped, but if they were talking about buying him with the intention of looking towards the Arkle, they obviously think quite highly of him. He said he think he had a setback early season, which is why he didn't go chasing. So it wasn't that they were being clever and keeping him back for the festival.
Willie Mullins won from 50 in the Coral Cup since 2010.
Yeah, not a great record. I'd say I thought the way the money was suggesting it was that they were leaning towards the Martin Pipe, but my personal view would be I'd look to run him in the County. So, but Willie has lots of options, so maybe that'll be something to bear in mind. Of those towards the top of the market, personally, in the Coral Cup, I think Altobelli's gone up enough in the weights. He's gone up £17 for his 2 wins this season, which would make life a lot tougher for him. I think Be Aware is pretty solid. I think the step up and trip will definitely bring about improvements in him. I've been waiting for him to step up in trip. He did run once last year over 2 mile 5 when beaten by Camzanas, who at the time was pretty in form. The form of his second at Sandown on the final day of the season is rock solid form, although Helmine, the winner, has been a little bit disappointing, no offences this season. And the third, Steel Ally, ran well in the Welsh Champion Hurdle and won a valuable handicap. Secret Squirrel was in behind, won a decent race. Fiercely Proud won the Ascot handicap, he finished 7th. Caught in the Ackbourne first time out, he was 9th. There's plenty of winners further down, so that's a really strong piece of form. And from this year, he was actually third behind Fiercely Proud when we last seen him at Ascot, and he was slightly disappointing, I thought, that day. But his run in the Greatwood Hurdle, because he came from off the pace, whereas Burdett Road was handy throughout. He gave him a big head start that day and nearly reeled him in. Got to within half a length. That was off a mark of 130. He's off 137 here. Still only had the 6th career start, so open to plenty of improvement. I think he'll go well off a mark of 137 for Dan Skelton.
Yeah, he's very dangerous, and particularly the step up and trip, you'd imagine, will bring out a little bit more improvement in him as well.
Yeah, he's bred. He just needs he's quite keen and a bit gassy, but so with the fact that he's been off for a while, maybe there'll be a little bit of a worry. But if Harry can get him switched off, should be able to in a strong pace and a big field. I imagine he'll be buried out and he'll be delivered late, so might need a bit of luck in running. But he'd be very much one to actually top my shortlist at this stage.
Yeah, I find it difficult to disagree with you there. Dan Skelton in the handicap hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. Very interested in whoever he's running. Anybody else to mention before we switch to our next race?
I'll say Imposed Tour would probably be interesting wherever he goes, although his Newbury form isn't overly strong and he's gone up £7. Actually, at the start of the season, I thought he might have been one who wants to come back in trip slightly because he looked a non-stayer in last year's Lanzarote. Because he sorted out the trip really well at Newbury on his only start this season. And he's also I think he wants better ground. So if the ground is good to soft, as we are thinking it might be, that would definitely be a positive towards Imposed Tour, whatever he rocks up. But I think he could be one maybe for the mountain bike.
Okay, there was no second to Ballyburn, but I would just mention Jimmy Desoy is an interesting one because I'll give reasons as to why I think Willie Mullins will have been rethinking things. He's had no run this season at all. We haven't seen him since he got thrashed by Ballyburn at Punchestown, but being 12 lengths off Bridle Days Ahead and 13 lengths off Ballyburn is probably pretty decent in the context of a race like this, and he'd be interesting.
That video I've just watched with Patrick, he mentioned him for the mountain bike, I think.
Did he now?
Yeah.
Interesting. Did Patrick happen to mention bunting?
No, he didn't. He mentioned for the ethical diamond for the county. Okay,
I'm actually pleased he didn't mention it. Maybe that's a good sign. We'll switch to the Pertemps, as Tony Keenan likes to call it. The Pertemps. The Wall Park heads the betting. Is he going to go for this race, or is he going to take on his stable companion? And some would say good thing for the stairs hurdle, Tihupu, the one class act in that race. We'll see. There has been talk that he's going to go for the grade one, so perhaps that is where he's going to go. But the Pertemps betting is headed by him, 6-1. Jericho de Repene, 7s, also for JP. Will the Wise, one of my horses to follow for the season. He's won his last 2. And he's got form of Final Demand as well, 7-1 shot. I think he's very interesting. Might need softer ground, though. Gwynny May Boy, 9s, win some, lose some, 10s. Where are we winning some and losing some with the Pertemps?
Nice. I thought he actually comes out to the right qualifier. If you're going by the trends of 6 of the past 9 winners running that Leopardstown qualifier. The 2 to take out of that were him and the mare Feet of a Dancer, who travelled really well in 3rd. I thought she was a bit eye-catching. Looked possibly as though she didn't thoroughly see it out, but I say probably she was given plenty of daylight out wide and could be one to be smothered into the race. So those 2 be respected. I thought Win Some Lose Some won with a bit in hand, but he did go up £10 on his IHRB rating from 125 to 135, and then he's been given another £3. So a fairly big rise in the. Likewise, Feet of a Dancer was given a £4 rise by the British handicapper. Like you, I thought Will the Wise would have been interesting, but again, I'd echo your sentiments. I do think he wants better ground. As you say, he ran in that maiden hurdle behind Final Demand, shed his maiden tag himself, and then won a qualifier recently at Nace. Again, he's gone up a fair bit though. He won that off 123 with Connor Stonewall's taking off a further 5. He went up to 131. And his British mark is 134. So again, needs to take a step forward. But we know Gavin's pretty shrewd, and he was actually considering running him in the Albert Bartlett. So if that was the case, you'd have to say he'd still think he was on a fair enough mark. But I think better ground would help him. Didn't really have, again, not a race. I had a strong view at this point. Mon Morale, just touch on last year's win. He's off 149. He was off 138 last year. I would think the Wall Park's more likely, personally, to run in the stayers. If he does run here, he'd have to be seriously respected. But I would have thought that they'll have a go to stayers because, like you say, besides Tihupu, that race, look. So if he was mine, I'd probably go on that route, the Grade 1 route. Just one more I wanted to mention. I was at Haydock recently when Doddy the Great seemed to return to form. He took a big step up in trip. He'd run over 2 mile 3 at Ascot the time before. Again, a bit like Feet of a Dancer. If you just watch it back, you might say he looked like a non-stayer, but he was in the van throughout under Brian Hughes. First time cheek pieces were on. I think if he's given a slightly more conservative ride, he likes decent ground again. So if it's good to soft, that'd be a massive bonus for him. I thought he might have been one actually. like Jericho the Repenny, like you thought go back to the Coral Cup, but he wasn't given an entry. This is his only entry, so I'm presuming he's going to run. And it was just good to see him bounce back to form, because he started the season over fences. It was a bit disappointing, and then he pulled up on 2 hurdle starts. So back to form and first time cheek pieces, unexposed at the trip, still lightly raced. I just thought he was one at a big price, who might appreciate being smothered into the race in the big field.
We didn't talk about this beforehand. This is specifically the reason why I'm thinking Jericho de Ripene might switch to the Coral Cup, because JP's got other horses for this race. Win Some, Lose Some being an obvious one. If they decided to roll with the Wall Park, they've obviously got him as well. But also Nicky Henderson has got Dodie the Great. And Dodie the Great was being sent off 100 to 30 for the handicap on Boxing Day, St. Stephen's Day. He was well fancied against Altabelli. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. And now, oh look, he's qualified for a Pertemps. Off a lovely mark of 131. I don't know. I might be putting 2 and 2 together there, but I would have him very high on the shortlist as well. I think he's a really
even though he's gone back up £5 for that win, but he ran well off 131 December last season. Actually finished second to Go Dante over 2 mile 1. He's got strong form over shorter. I just thought it was an eye-catching run. Not that day at Haydock, he was the one I took out from the card as being one possibly for the spring festival.
Yeah. Thomas Moore, I think, is fascinating. He was 5th behind Stay Away Faye in the potato race when trained by David Pipe. He's qualified for this on St. Stephen's Day, and then they've tried him in a novice handicap chase, and it just didn't happen for him. He was well beat. Back over hurdles. He's high enough in the weights, but he's a 40 to 1 shot. You're probably getting even bigger with Jeff. 66 to 1, Thomas Moore. He'd be very, very interesting for a team that are in great form as well. It's just a rejuvenated yard. I'd be really interested in Thomas Moore at a big price.
He's another horse who likes better ground, I think, as well. So
yeah,
conditions might be in his favour.
Yeah,
he looked really promising as a novice last year. I thought the following season I expected him to make up into a decent novice chaser, but obviously had his issues, and then subsequently left David Pipe, and now, as you say, with Hobbs and Johnson White, Hobbs and Johnson White.
I was sorry to see David lose him, because I know he was a horse that he always held in very high regard, and just look at how the potato race worked out. All right, Stay Away Faye didn't quite go forward, but Affordale Fury is useful for Noel Meade. Sandro Clegane's a very good horse for Paul Nolan, who'll probably pop up in the handicap at some point. He's not grade 1 class, he never was, but he is a very good handicapper. 3-card Bragg, if he gets in, is going to be a lively player in the Grand National. That was a decent race, and that was only 3 starts back for him. So very lightly raced horse, and as I said, the Hobbs Yard are just completely rejuvenated this year. 66 to 1 greatly underestimates the chances of Thomas Moore. If this is the target for Jericho de Ripene, he's the main player for me, but he's now well found in the betting at this point. And I don't know, maybe I'm putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 97, but 2.5 on the old course would be better for Jericho de Ripene, I think, in the Coral Cup, and that might suit him a little bit better. And JP's got plenty of other options for this race. I'd have a slight stamina doubt about him, but he was a very high-class horse last season. He beat Lump Sum. That form's obviously worked out well. You can ignore he's running the Supreme. Nicky's horses were all sick. If this is the race they go for, then I respect the plan, and I would imagine they'll pull it off. But at the prices, 66 to 1 about Thomas Moore, he would be the each-way play for me to try and follow up our winning bet with Montmoral in the race a year ago. County Hurdle. So again, Kopeck to me is towards the top of the betting. If this is good ground and they run him, you may as well just call it off and just hand him the trophy now, because Absurd will absolutely annihilate this field. He won it on ground he would have hated a year ago, and then went on to win on the flat again afterwards. If they run him in this race on what could be good ground, good night and good luck. He's been well backed.
I think that Patrick on that interview again just then, I don't know how recent that was actually recorded, but he was saying there's a possibility that he'll be running on a flat soon instead of running a county hurdle.
Well, that makes sense as well, to be fair. I mean, look, he's a classy flat horse, but there's going to be some valuable prizes to go for with him. If he lines up in this race on good to soft, 8-1 with Jeff Banks bet is massive. They've also got Cargizi though, 10-1 for her. She was second in the Triumph Hurdle a year ago. That would obviously make her super interesting. And
surely goes the mares, doesn't she?
I don't think. Why? They've got Jade de Grugy and Gala Marceau for the mares.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if she didn't run the mares.
I'd be surprised if she was tried over 2 mile 4. I'd say this is the race they'll go for. Mark of 1-4-1. Jade de Grugy, Gala Marceau. They've got a couple of others for the mares hurdle as well. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is the race they'll go for. I'd be surprised, to be honest.
Oh, we'll see.
All right, elaborate. Who do you like for the county hurdle?
Obviously, we've already covered Kopeck to me. Don't need to go over him again. McClory's there at the top of the markets. He will have the option of the Martin Pipe as well, whether you want to step up and trip. I think Emmett Mullen suggested after Leopardstown that was a possibility, stepping up in distance. He won at the DRF off a mark of 120. He got a £13 rise by the Irish handicapper, and then he's got £3 added on by the BHA. So he's now up to a mark of 136. So obviously wouldn't need a career best, but I was quite taken with him at Leopardstown, so would respect him wherever he turned up. Absurd. He's saying if he did turn up, he'd need to improve £8 on last year's 146. Now he won off 138 last year. The one I've been keen on prior to the weights being announced was the same connections as Ethical Diamond, who I touched on earlier. He obviously ran in last year's Triumph. We know how good last year's crop of juveniles were. Took him a while to get the hang of things. O'Vale's won a maiden hurdle last time, but even his Irish mark went up for winning that maiden from 131 to 137, and then he got hit with a £6 rise from the British handicapper. So a mark of 143 tempers my enthusiasm somewhat there. I do think the race will be run to suit him, and as you say, better ground. He's another X flat horse. You can see him travelling well into the race, and it may well be that he's able to get away with that rise. But I thought he'd be more towards the high 130s than 143, so you'd need to have a bit in hand. So again, slightly less enthused than I was before the weights coming out. The one who was probably best treated, so to speak, in terms of their Irish mark compared to their British mark, I thought it was Lark in the Morning. He was £10 higher now, 132, than when he won the Fred Winter last year. And again, I think he won last year's Fred Winter, despite the heavy ground. I think he wants much better ground. We haven't seen him much since. A little bit disappointing, I thought, in the Swinton at Haydock. And then he come back from a 230-day break to run behind Ennis Kerry at Leopardstown over Christmas. But again, with Joseph O'Brien and the Mulryans, I think that it looks like maybe this has been a long-term plan. And on better ground, off a mark of 132, I think Lark in the Morning's got to be on anyone's shortlist.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's a huge player. I think another huge player is Valgrand. Again, we've got Dan Skelton, handicap hurdle at Cheltenham, and
this race has been dominated by Skelton years, and I think early on it was safe enough to you would have thought that this was going to be the plan. He was kept on the go because he ran in a bumper early last season and then came out and ran well in the Aintree bumper, so he was kept on the go and got a couple of early runs in over hurdles during May, which he won both starts. Yeah. Then he was really impressive in that grade 2, the Sharp Novice hurdle at the start of the season, but he was put in his place then by Potter's Charm when he looked a non-stayer, come back in trip, been a bit of a change in tactics on his last 2 starts. Again, he hasn't been seen since Christmas, so it does look like he's been saved for this. And interesting enough, that the two contributors to the book who produced the daily selections, Sam Turner and Jodie Standen, this was the only horse that they concurred on throughout the whole of the 4 days. So both of them put him up as like equivalently as essentially an anti-post selection, because they wrote at the start of February. So they concurred on that. I think better ground would definitely help him as well. I just don't know whether he's come down from 140 to 134. Still, he doesn't scream like he's chucked into me personally, but I would respect him from the Dan.
Well, he's the only unexposed novice getting into the race. I'm wondering, did Dan have some sort of a heads up that the rule change was coming in, or was he just really forward thinking? I don't know, but the 2 early season runs in the summer have worked a treat for this horse. He's bolted up in that grade 2. He sent off odds on against Potter's Charm. Potter's Charm goes on and wins a grade 1 in his next start. Yeah, he was disappointing the last day, but he won a grade 1. And then it's a change in tactics on his next couple of starts, and suddenly he's gone from 140 to 134. That's how the game is played. Dan Skelton, chef's kiss again. This is beautiful. This is a thing of beauty. And they didn't make the mistake they made with Lotus Sud. They didn't throw him into the William Hill Hurdle, what should be the Tote Sport Gold Trophy. They've gone for, no, we'll just take him nice and fresh, get him to Cheltenham. Mark of 134.
Dan Skelton and William Owens have won 9 of the past 10 renewals between them, which is some strike rate in a race of this nature. Like Pat Farhy, I think, was the only one. With Belfast Banter's the only one who's slipped in between them. So I think obviously people's starting point will be with horses from those 2 yards.
This is just follow the Dan Skelton plan. Follow the plan. Dan Skelton's got this mapped out. 12-1 with Jeff Banks bet about Valgrand. Good luck. If Absurd lines up, Absurd will win. If he lines up. Townend will ride him. I'm pretty sure he won't, and I'm pretty sure Cargizi will be Paul Townend's mount, and I have maximum respect for her, given her Triumph Hurdle run a year ago, and America 141 will underestimate her ability. But Valgrand is off 134, and I don't think that Harry will be shaking his head crossing the line again with a sarcastic grin going, how have we been beaten by a better handicapped horse? They'll land it this year, and they'll land it with him. The Mullins camp might be in the winner's enclosure though in the last race. The Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle. Betting with Jeff Banks Bet is headed by Kopek Demi. Again, our old friend Kopek is in there. Fair play to Paul Ferguson. He had written about him in his preview book at the start of the year. Or the start of the season, I should be saying. Wado is going to be fascinating. Everybody's going to be talking about Wado, given she kicked Joyeuse into touch, and that horse has then come out and won the William Hill Hurdle. McClory is interesting. East India Express. I haven't mentioned the horse that interests me most for the race, though. I have not seen his price yet. What's your thoughts for the Martin Pipe? Who's on your shortlist?
I think, again, obviously Kopek de Boer has to be on anyone's shortlist. I think Wado, as you say. I think Gordon Elliott's already stated that although she's got other engagements, I think she's in the Coral Cup. This will be the target with Danny Gilligan's ride. Not just Joyeuse, that form from December is absolutely rock solid. Yeah. Like, she came out and won the William Hill. The third place, Take No Chances. Came out and won a grade 2 next time. Royal Margot, who finished in 4th, came out and won the listed 20 to 1
winner for us in the listed race.
Yeah, but she's gone up. She was off 130 that day, so she's £11 higher. But just as a piece of form, that could not have worked out any stronger. She's unbeaten in 6 starts over hurdles. So, say from Marco 141, she'd have been entitled to be considered for the men's hurdle. But the fact that they're coming here suggests there's been a long-term plan, and you'd respect that. With Gordon Elliott, she'd have to be on anyone's list again. McClory would be interesting for me if he stepped up in trip and imposed to our whole horse who we've covered earlier. Perhaps the only one who didn't mention, who we haven't already mentioned, it could be interesting, the Enabler, in terms of connections. Gordon Elliott, Gigginstown, novice hurdler, and he's had the required runs to get in. Bit disappointing behind McClory last time, but I don't think the drop back to 2 miles really suited him. He ran over 2 miles behind Jasmine DeVoe in a race that's worked out quite well. A maiden hurdle that's worked out well because his work ahead was actually behind him that day. Then he won his maiden hurdle over Christmas over 2 mile 4. I think going back up in trip will certainly help him, and because he looks more of a staying type. So the Enabler at a bigger price from 136 will be another for the short list. But Kopek Demi and Wado, whoever, if Kopek Demi goes elsewhere, I think Wado will be pretty short here.
Shortlist from Paul Ferguson. My shortlist is pretty short, headed by Bunting, who's got really good juvenile hurdle form from last season. He ran a massive race at the Dublin Racing Festival. He was really impressive on his hurdling debut. If you were listening to the show a year ago, you'll have heard me waxing lyrical about him after his debut on soft ground at Limerick. Then he goes to the DRF. He was doing all his best work at the finish in the spring juvenile hurdle, a race won by Cargizi. Second was Stormheart, who finished second at the Dublin Racing Festival off a mark of 114, a valuable handicap. In third is Majborough, who obviously becomes the monster that he is, and Bunting was 4th. He was sent off a shorter price for the Triumph Hurdle than Majborough was, so they're obviously expecting a bigger run than they got. He for whatever reason, didn't fire at the Cheltenham Festival, but the form of that Triumph Hurdle has obviously worked out very well. He's then gone to Punchestown. He was no match for Carghese. She, in the interim, had finished second to Sergino. All that juvenile form looks really good. They tried him on the flat. It didn't quite work. They've given him an easy time of things. On his comeback, he probably would have been third had his stable companion stood up at the second last, but again, he was doing all his best work towards the finish of the race. And I would imagine that the Mullins clan, once the Jockey Club and the BHA announced the handicap rule change, just looked around the yard and went, okay, we're not going to get any of our novice hurdlers essentially into these handicaps. So who do we have that has experience that we can sneak into a valuable handicap at Cheltenham? Oh, look, Bunting. And he's got a mark of 139. I'm not telling you he's chucked in, but he's surely better than that mark. He must be a horse in the 140s at least. And I'd say this trip on the new course at Cheltenham will suit him down to the ground. I really like Bunting. I think he's got a massive chance, and you can get 20 to 1 about him for the Martin Pipe with Jeff Banks bet. Where do you think he'll go?
I thought County, as he's never been beyond 2-1, but do you think to step up and triple suits him, do you?
I think it will.
He looked like he could be, well, often juveniles are, but he looked like he could have been a stayer last year. So I was slightly conscious that he's only ever run on soft or heavy ground, but he's by Bathir on same side as Valgrand, who likes decent ground, same side as Cate Dori, who won the big race at Kempton on relatively decent ground at the weekend. So maybe pedigree suggests that he'll get away with it. So yeah, obviously, as we've already touched upon, last year's crop of juveniles were well above average. So I was like you, I was extremely impressed with him at Limerick. That's quite. I think the quiet approach of the 5-year-old that Willie started doing in the last couple of years. We saw it with Lossiemouth last year. I think that helps them, to be honest. So, yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off at big odds. But again, I'm not sure where he'll turn up.
Yeah, it's a complete guessing game, Paul, as to which race.
I wouldn't think it'd be the Coral Cup. I would have thought it's either the County, or if you do want to step up and trip, you'd go in the Martin Pipe, because again, he's qualified and you're not facing them classier horses, them X-graded horses in the like you can do in the Coral Cup, the likes of Ali Adam, etc. So yeah, if he with a mark of 139, I would assume it'd either be the County or the Martin Pipe. Yeah,
it's the lower class race, and he might just get taken off his feet in the Coral Cup, whereas the Martin Pipe, he'll have more time and he won't be taking on as classy a group of horses either. I think he's fascinating for this. Of the Gordon Elliott horses, I thought Manila Sixo was really interesting. That form with the big Westerner probably reads well. I might be overvaluing that form, and I actually don't fancy her for the potato race, but that's because she's too short a price. You would need to be looking for something at a big price in that race. They tried to get a qualifier.
He did take a heavy fall at Haydock recently when I was there. That was a pretty bad fall a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
that'd be the only thing. Like, wouldn't be ideal coming in on the back of that, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't be. And he was lucky to get up from that fall. But the fact that they were trying to qualify him for Pertemps tells you handicaps are the way they're going to go with them. Calaconte, they've talked about for the Coral Cup, but you'd like to see her in the Mares Hurdle, and she'd be a big player in that race, by the way, if she goes. Tap on the Go. I don't get this. Like, he's become the wise guy horse now, and maybe he's just going to blitz them. But I haven't seen it personally. And I can't imagine for 1 second that it was in McClory's interest to win the maiden hurdle that Tap on the Go won by 9 lengths.
No. Obviously that form's decent. His form with James's Gate is decent, because James's Gate was one. If you'd have asked me a month or so ago for a handicapper at the festival, yeah. James's Gate for the Coral Cup was one that I was particularly keen on. Obviously, he was forced to miss his engagement at the DRF, so he wasn't qualified because he only had the 4 runs. So yeah, I assume he'll run in the turn as novice there now. So his form prior to recently, when he was relatively well put in his place by William Money last week, was quite good. But yeah, I was a bit surprised by it. Seemed to be a bit of a plunge on him, didn't it, in recent days.
Yeah. Do we have any idea where Comfort Zone is going to go?
What's he got in? What entries has he got?
He's in the Coral and he's in the Martin Pipe.
Yeah. He's run over. He's another one. He's been off since Christmas, isn't he?
Yeah. I'd be interested in him.
Again, 137. You'd get in. I would imagine you'd get in. You'd definitely get into the Coral off 137. He's fairly unexposed as well over that sort of trip, isn't he? Ran behind the Wall Park, didn't he, at Galway? And then he finished third at Leopardstown over Christmas. So I would say, probably, given Joseph's record in the race as well, maybe that the Martin Pipe would be the way there.
you'd imagine he's going to be more of a Martin Pipe horse. He's a big price. He's a very, very big price. I'm seeing 33s. What price is Jeff Banks bet going? Please hold, caller. Your call is very important to us at Final Furlong Podcast Terrace. You're getting over 33 to 1 about Comfort Zone for the Martin Pipe. I think he's in. That's a dangerous horse. Very, very dangerous horse. I'd be keeping him wherever he ends up. I'd be keeping him very high on the short list. Very simply, my two for this race are Wado, for the very obvious reasons of copy and paste of what Paul Ferguson said. The form is red hot. She's unbeaten. She's completely unexposed. Yeah, she's off a mark of 141 now, but who knows how much more improvement there is to come from her. And it seems as though this has been a plan for a while. I did hear Gordon saying the other day that they could run her in the mare's hurdle if they wanted. I doubt very much they'll do that. I think that's more an emphasis on that's the class the horse has, that she could end up running in a mare's hurdle if they wanted. And Bunting. Bunting is a fascinating horse. I'm really, really excited about backing him. Okay, Paul Ferguson, your best handicap bets for Cheltenham. I think we've cracked all of these races. And I think we're going to land some monster super hinds that pays an absolute fortune. So who are we with?
There you go. I'll say the two I've backed already, and they would be the two I'd stick with. Haiti Couleur and Jaguar would be my two stronger fancies.
Okay. I think Thomas More is a massive price for the Pertemps, if that's where they go. I'd have him very, very high on the short list. Valgrand for the County, Bunting for the Martin Pipe. They'd be the two, as we're recording, that I'm strongest on. There will be more Final Forum podcast episodes in the build-up, but they're very, very high on the list. Answer to KF for the novice handicap chase. I think he's going to be a huge, huge player. And will we just say the Ultima one now? Will we just do it? Johnny Who wins the Ultima. All right. Paul Ferguson, you can get your copy of the excellent Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide, which has got excellent insight and all of the statistics and stats that you badly need for Cheltenham 2025. Get your copy right now at weatherbyshop.co.uk. Use the promo code. It is on screen for you right now. Weatherbyshop.ie for Ireland, weatherbyshop.co.uk for the UK. You'll get £5 off the print copy, the digital edition, or the bundle. Get the best of both worlds. Your promo code at checkout, capital letters FFCFBG25. Final Furlong Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide 25. FFCFBG25. £5 off your purchase of the Weatherby's Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide and digital copy, print copy. It is an essential read. Get your copy right now in time for Cheltenham. Paul, what is the horse you are most confident about winning at Cheltenham 2025?
Got most confident. I'm allowed to go with all the short ones then. I've been trying to avoid the obvious on the preview panels. I think if you have to have one running for you, it'd probably be Gallup and Deschamps, wouldn't it? But I'd say the one I'm most looking forward to seeing, Kopek the Boards, I'm looking forward to seeing in the Supreme Novice Hurdle. Be nice to see him in the flesh for the first time.
Blitzes them from the front. Gets us off to a winning start for Cheltenham 2025. Paul, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll have you on the show again in the build-up to Aintree. Possibly right after Cheltenham as well. We'll have to talk about that. But really enjoyed it. Pleasure talking to you as always on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for giving us all of your notes for the handicaps. Your cheat sheet is complete. Go back over this episode, listen to the gold that Paul has sprinkled there for you. Hopefully there are fortunes to be made. And don't forget, you can get your bets on now with Jeff Banks Bet and get 10% of any net losses back after your first month of betting up to £500, FFP 500 at jeffbanks.bet. Use your promo code FFP 500 and get set for the Cheltenham Festival with Jeff Banks Bet. He will be there on track. You can take his money on track and have a glass of champagne with him. The man will even buy you a glass of champagne even if you have a winning bet with him. FFP 500, jeffbanks.bet, not a guarantee. From Paul Ferguson and from me, Emmet Kennedy, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching this episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Likes are much appreciated. Shares are much appreciated. We're back with more content very, very soon as the countdown to the Cheltenham Festival continues.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet.